Hey sightseers, Sightseeing Sally here. Today I'm going to show you around some of the historic buildings here in the city of Menominee. And the reason for that is not only is there some fascinating history here that might otherwise be forgotten, but it is also related to the lumber industry that we've been exploring in other videos. And just so happened that I had some errands to run over in Marinette, which if you didn't know is basically Wisconsin's sister city of Michigan's Menominee. Say hello to Menominee, Michigan, a city with a population currently around 8,300. Menominee is located opposite Marinette, Wisconsin, at the mouth of the Menominee River. Once a booming lumber town with over 30,000 people, Michigan's southernmost city in the Upper Peninsula is named after one of the Native American tribes who used to live in these parts. Just as the name suggests, the city of Menominee was once home to the Menominee Indian tribe. And if you stop here at the Visitor Center in Menominee, you can see the Menominee Indian Spirit Stone. Legend has it that if you offer the Spirit Stone a gift and make a wish, you'll have good luck. Whether you believe the legend or not, the Menominee believe that once the Spirit Stone has weathered away, the last of the tribe will have gone to the happy hunting grounds of the Great Spirit. With the Native Americans playing such an important role in the early development and naming of this area, I'd be remiss not to include some of the Menominee Indian tribe's early history. If you didn't know, the Menominee belonged to the Algonquin group in the eastern woodland area, which is a broad belt extending from the Great Lakes to the Atlantic Ocean. And as it was, the Menominee were one of several tribes that inhabited this area long before French explorer Jean Nicolet arrived here in 1634. Menominee, by the way, means wild rice, which is what the Native Americans were known for gathering in this area. Wild rice, or wild oats as it is sometimes called, was traditionally one of the main staples of food for the Menominee Indian tribe. Not really a rice, but rather seeds of an aquatic grass, wild rice grew plentiful along the banks of the Menominee River back in the day. Here we can see a sign commemorating when French-Canadian voyager Louis Chappie came here during the late 1790s. According to the sign, Chappie, who was an agent for the American Fur Company, was the first white settler to settle here in Menominee. To say lumbering was huge here is an understatement. As you'll soon see from the architecture of these buildings I'm about to show you, there was money to be made in the lumber industry. Now, if you've never taken the time to explore the historic district here in Menominee, you've been really missing out. Because besides all the history in the old buildings, you've got places like the Serving Spoon, which, by the way, I have eaten here, and the food is Pirates Cove, a great place to come inside and warm up, or have a shot after doing the Yooper Plunge. Murray's, and places like Trends and Traditions. Not to mention just the beautiful view you have overlooking the lake. Wow, the trees are just popping with color here today. And now presenting the former Lloyds department store. Built in 1926 by Menominee millionaire Marshall Burns Lloyd, this place was called the Wonder Store. Inside it had a marble-embellished arcade, and it was stocked with European goods that could rival most department stores in the big cities. And of course, it had the movie theater. The store ran until 1946, when it was then converted into a manufacturing site for the Fish, Net, and Twine Company. Later, it was abandoned, and then in 2012, the Woda Group bought it. They began renovating it. Now it contains 44 sustainably designed apartments, along with some other businesses. Now, some of you might recognize the style of this next building. It's a former gas station. Built in 1925, during an era when going to get gas was something of an event, it now houses a tattoo parlor. My personal favorite, I just love how this old building looks. Known as the Shale Building, it was built in 1895 using red sandstone trim from Calumet. Originally a saloon for the Menominee River Brewery, it had apartments upstairs and an Italian restaurant in the basement. And while I can't tell you when those businesses went out, I can tell you is that it now houses an art gallery. And then across the street from it is the Lumbermen's National Bank. Built in 1891, the second story once housed the city offices. It seems that my little handy-dandy walking guide isn't as complete as I thought it would be, because I'm finding a lot of curious-looking buildings that aren't on here. So I think what I'm going to do is just film the ones that I find interesting, and if they happen to be on the walking tour that I can give you some more background information, then I will. Now here's one that looks interesting. It's now home to Marmon Computing, but I have a funny feeling that's not what it was originally built for. Let's check our handy-dandy guide, shall we? If I had to guess, with it being as ornate as it is, it looks like some type of old government building, but I could be wrong. Looks like mystery solved. It was an old government building, the post office. I wonder why they ended up moving the post office from here. If you're from Menominee and you catch this, let me know in the comments section below. And then across the street there's this building which is all boarded up. That one's a little bit easier to discern because it says Barclay's Livery. Oops, I realized I meant to say livery. It's pronounced livery. And if you didn't know, a livery was where you could either A, board your horses for a fee, or B, you could rent horses, and in this case, along with carriages and sleighs. Built in 1892, inside there still is the freight elevator that was used to lift up the carriages and sleighs to the second floor, where they were stored. The horses were kept, I guess, in the basement. Is it just me, or is it kind of ironic that once I said I was just going to start picking out buildings and talking about them, that I happen to find some that were on the list? And yes, now you know my little secret. Sometimes I do my own research, and other times I get help. This, by the way, looks like an interesting place to eat. You'll never guess what this next building used to be. What's now home to Bird's Landing used to be a meat market. Originally built in 1872, which coincidentally is exactly 100 years since I was born, this building will always be fondly remembered as Servatius Meat Market, where you could go in to buy a chunk of round steak, and Mr. Servatius, out of the kindness of his heart, would throw in a soup bone and ring bologna. Interestingly enough, after the 20s, this building became a garage for city buses. I'm glad they decided to renovate it and make it into a restaurant. As you walk around the historic district of Menominee, you can see that many of the buildings have been refurbished, restored to their original glory, while others are in progress, and still others are sitting empty, basically abandoned, waiting for the right person to come along. Now, this next building is on the National Register of Historic Places. However, it's in progress of being restored to its former glory. Drum roll, please. I present to you the Menominee Opera House. Built in 1902, this place at one time was magnificent. with maroon plush seats and a fire curtain painted in. A scene from Longfellow's The Courtship of Miles Standish. It cost $100 to sit in a box. Yet, even the common folk could come sit and watch a silent movie because seats in the second balcony were only 50 cents. What used to be Fire Station Number 1 is now Ameriprise Financial. Built in 1874, the building's red sandstone came from the Red Jacket Mine in Calumet, Michigan. Back when it was first built, the fire engine was pulled by a team of horses, which would have exited through those double doors you see there. Also, interestingly enough, Menominee's first library was up on the second floor here. And then across the street from the old firehouse is what I believe used to be Richard's Hotel. Built in 1889 by none other than a guy whose last name was Richards, this building was used as a bar and boarding house. And although gutted by a fire on Christmas Day in '72, the building was saved and has been restored. Uh-oh, all the street lights came on. You know what that means? Cinderella's about to turn into a pumpkin. Or in this case, Sightseeing Sally's gonna run out of daylight and isn't gonna be able to show you any more of downtown Menominee. Now that's gotta be the best Halloween decoration I've seen on this block so far. Actually, it's more like the only Halloween decoration I've seen. Here's a better view of it without my reflection. What's left of the old commercial bank building? It's pretty impressive close up. Look at how ornate that column is. And the etching above the entrance. You can see they still have the after-hour depository here on the sign of the bank building. Let's see if it works. Oh, welded shut. And what used to be the First National Bank building built in 1908. And then kitty corner from the First National Bank building is this. The Electric Square building, which houses a sandwich and ice cream shop. Built in 1881, this was originally a saloon with the second and third floors serving as a hotel. And if you look at the east side of the building, you can see where there once were some large windows that were bricked up. I don't want to start any rumors, but what I heard is that the reason these windows were bricked up is so that the wives of the men who were coming in here couldn't see in. Because I'm guessing they were up to no good with the saloon girls. And the owner, being the wise man that he was, realized it was probably better for his bottom dollar to not allow the women to be able to see inside. Of course, that's just what I heard. If you're from Menominee and you know the true story, let me know in the comments section below. And if you're wondering about that ice cream they're serving nowadays, I wouldn't recommend it. At least not on a day like today, which, although I've had the ice cream there and it is really good, today is not the day for it. I'm thinking more like a hot chocolate would be good. Looks like we've got some ghoulish figures here at the Lighthouse Title Group building. And speaking of ghoulish figures, I'm thinking this girl's gonna get pretty ghoulish if she doesn't go get warmed up with some hot cocoa.